My name is Rachel, and until a few years ago, I was a teacher. 35 years of standing in front of a classroom, grading papers late into the night, and pouring my heart into kids who sometimes barely noticed I was there. I loved teaching. It wasn't about the money. God knows, it never is. It was about shaping young minds, giving them a place where they could feel safe and seen. After I retired, life slowed down. Some days I enjoyed the peace. Other days, I missed the noise, the questions, even the small arguments over homework. I had saved up a little money over the years, but honestly, I never cared much for big spending. A cup of coffee at the corner diner, a second-hand book from the thrift shop, those were my little luxuries. But what many didn't know, and what I myself often forgot, was that 20 years ago, I had invested a small inheritance from my mother into a little tech startup. At the time, it felt silly. I didn't even fully understand what they were building, but I trusted the young man who pitched it. He had been one of my students, and he had a fire in his eyes. I never touched that investment, and over the years, I stopped thinking about it altogether. That is, until I received a letter one day, a thick, official-looking envelope that didn't seem like the usual junk mail. When I opened it, I had to sit down. My hands shook. That tiny investment had grown into millions, tens of millions. I didn't tell many people. I didn't know how to act rich. I still wore my old cardigans and drove my rusted Toyota. Money didn't change who I was inside. One rainy Thursday, I decided I wanted a new sofa. Mine had been around since the late 90s, and every time I sat down, it sighed louder than I did. I thought, why not get something nice for once? So I drove to the nicest furniture store in town, a big, shiny place at the fancy new mall. When I walked in, the air smelled of leather and expensive candles. I could hear soft music playing, not the pop stuff I liked, but the kind of music that feels like it floats above your head. The floors gleamed under the bright lights. Everything looked so clean and new. I wandered from set to set, admiring the neat arrangements. A cream-colored couch with gold-trimmed pillows. A sleek coffee table with a price tag bigger than my first car. I gently touched the fabric of a beautiful armchair when I heard a voice behind me. "Can I help you?" a young woman asked. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Just looking, thank you," I said, smiling. She looked me up and down, my worn-out sneakers, my old jeans, my rain-spotted jacket, and I could see the judgment flicker across her face. I knew that look. I had seen it 1,000 times over. The years from students who thought I wasn't worth their attention. "Well, just so you know," she said, her voice overly sweet, "everything here is very expensive." I swallowed hard. "That's okay," I said quietly. I moved on, pretending to admire a lamp, but her voice followed me. "Maybe try the clearance outlet across town," she said, laughing softly with another sales associate. I felt my face burn. I wanted to leave. I should have left. But something inside me, maybe the same stubbornness that kept me grading essays until midnight all those years, made me stay. I wandered the entire store, letting their laughter chase me like a shadow. When I got back to my car, I sat behind the wheel and cried. I cried not just for the way they treated me, but for all the years I had felt invisible. In the classroom, in grocery stores, even among old friends who thought being a teacher meant I didn't have much to offer. I drove home, wiped my face, made myself a cup of tea, and thought long and hard. Then I made a phone call. The next morning, I met with a real estate agent. The same agent who had helped me buy my little house years ago. I asked him a question I never imagined asking. Can you find out who owns the mall? He looked surprised, but said he would. It turned out the mall had been struggling. Online shopping was eating up profits, and the owners were eager to sell for the right price. I made an offer, a big one, no haggling. I wanted it to be done quickly by Monday morning. I owned the mall, and my first act as the new owner, I walked into that furniture store wearing the same jeans, the same rain jacket, the same old sneakers. The young woman spotted me instantly and smirked. Back again, she said. Lose your way to the outlet. I smiled. No, I said. I'm here to inform you that as of today, I own this entire building, including this store. Her face froze, the color draining from her cheeks. The manager hurried over, sensing something was wrong. I repeated myself, louder this time, so the entire store could hear. As the new owner, I have a few changes to announce, starting with new training for the staff, focused on respect, kindness, and never judging someone by how they look. The manager stuttered, offering apologies. The young woman looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. I didn't fire her. I could have. Part of me wanted to. But then I remembered all the kids I had taught. The ones who had made mistakes, said cruel things, and yet still grew up to be good people because someone gave them another chance. I believe people can learn, I said. I believe in second chances. I turned and left without buying a thing. Instead, over the next few months, I transformed the mall. I added a community center where teenagers could hang out safely after school. I opened a bookstore that sold both new and used books at prices everyone could afford. I created small spaces for local artists to showcase their work, without charging them a fortune in rent. I also set up a scholarship fund for kids from low-income families, because sometimes all it takes is one person believing in you to change your life. People started calling it the Heart Mall. Not officially. The big sign out front still read Westwood Plaza in bold, sun-faded letters. But it didn't matter. Everyone in town knew what it had become. They felt it the moment they walked through the doors that it wasn't just a place to shop anymore. It was a place where people belonged. You could see it in the way the security guards smiled and held doors open for mothers wrangling toddlers. You could hear it in the soft laughter spilling from the new cafe, where strangers sat at long tables and ended up leaving as friends. You could feel it in the little details. Free book exchanges by the benches, art from local kids hanging proudly in the halls, music students playing live in the evenings for anyone who cared to stop and listen, small businesses that couldn't afford the high rents of fancy malls finally had a place to thrive. There was a toy store run by a retired couple, a plant shop owned by two best friends who had always dreamed of working together, a bakery where the owner made extra loaves each morning, just to give away to anyone who needed them. On weekends, families gathered for community events, story times, farmers markets, free concerts, little craft fairs. Sometimes, I would sit on one of the benches, sipping my coffee, watching the life pour in and out of those glass doors, and my heart would feel so full it hurt. It wasn't grand or glamorous. There were no designer labels or shiny advertisements screaming at you to buy, buy, buy. Instead, there was something quieter, something stronger, a spirit of kindness, a sense of being seen, of being welcomed just as you are. And me? I didn't change much on the outside. I still wore my old sneakers with the fraying laces and the scuffed toes. I still bought my coffee for $1 at the little diner round the corner, even though I could now afford the fanciest latte and town if I wanted. I still cried at sappy movies, especially the ones with happy endings. The ones where the underdog finally wins. Money hadn't changed who I was. It had simply given me the chance to do the thing I loved most in the world. Teaching people, in a new way, that kindness matters. That dignity is not something you earn with a price tag, but something you deserve just by being human. Looking back now, I realize that Rainy Thursday was a gift. It didn't feel like one at the time. That day, sitting in my car with tears streaming down my face, I had felt small, humiliated, invisible. But sometimes, hurt is the spark that lights a fire in you. Sometimes it shakes you awake, reminds you of who you are, and who you refuse to be. That moment taught me that a little dignity, a little heart, can build more than walls and ceilings. It can build homes for the spirit. It can open doors that no key could ever unlock. And sometimes, when you're lucky, when you're just stubborn enough to believe you still matter, you find out that you're never too old, never too small, to change the world. One smile at a time, one second chance at a time, one rainy Thursday at a time.